South Africa's unemployment rate increased by 1.7 percentage points to 32.5% in the fourth quarter. Compared to the quarter 3 last year, 2020 saw the highest jobless rate since quarterly data became available in 2008, with more people searching for work amid the easing of lockdown restrictions. To expand on this, we're now joined by Deputy President of Black Business Forum, Tasneem Fredericks, to give us more clarity. Tasneem, a very good morning to you. Thank you for your time. It's been a concerning time, especially as we've dealt with the lockdown periods, the impact of the lockdown, millions of people losing jobs and businesses forced to close. What do you make as you assess the outcome of those stats when it comes to the latest unemployment rates?
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Paul. Just a correction. I'm speaking on behalf of the Black Management Forum. So the views expressed are the views of our members and the leadership. We have had and I think it's important that one sort of, you can't look at the unemployment rate in isolation of the preceding SONA, the budget speech, the critical skills list that was released a week ago, and then now last Tuesday, the issue of unemployment, the rising issue of unemployment. It's clear that, it's an economic crisis, and, it's problematic even defining unemployment in this country. I think that when one looks at the standards used, it's fraught with problems. But having said that, and just, putting that aside for the moment, we must be acutely aware of who the unemployment rate is consistently affecting in this country. And I mean, the statistics, the empirical data is showing that it is Black African women and Black colored women that are specifically most vulnerable and most unemployed, least educated, and so least likely to be employed and absorbed into the market, other than in a domestic worker capacity. So it's low level. It's almost forces this gender disparity of women always being at the end of or finding themselves in poverty. So I think that's quite important. The fact that government has these wonderful ideas, these wonderful programs, but then the implementation of it and the monitoring of it and the reporting of it remains lacking. So it is quite concerning that we find ourselves probably in the highest recorded level of unemployment quarter since 2008, like you mentioned.
You raise several important aspects as you speak. I mean, you speak about the gender disparity, and you speak about programs that look good on paper but fail to really make their way through to be felt in people's day-to-day lives when it comes to implementation. What do you then believe are the solutions, especially as we look at the gender dynamics and the vulnerable groups of Black and colored women?
I think it's important, firstly, just to state that, we have a vote of confidence from the highest office in the country. The president, at the Women's Day last year, announced that 40% of procurement would be allocated to women. So, I mean, that's a big number. 40% is not a joke. And since that date of the announcement, we haven't seen anything in real terms. We've asked, who is going to be responsible for rolling this out? Who's going to be responsible for implementing it, monitoring it, ensuring that it actually happens? So I think that there's this sort of bureaucracy that is a constant obstacle, where other departments and government is known for working in silos. It's sort of always a case of the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing, and I think there needs to be an integrated approach. The president has often spoken about triple oppression in terms of, being Black, being a woman, and then occupying this, economic, getting paid less as a consequence for no reason other than the fact that you are a woman. So, we need to see more action. We need to see fast tracking of the procurement bill. We need to see legislation supporting that environment, and forcing other departments, to also play their role. And yeah, just basically doing what they're supposed to be doing. To put cash in the hands of women, I think that is the most important part. And also to ensure an environment where SMMEs are supported. SMMEs are constantly being paid late. They're constantly, being forced to charge lower rates, for example. And then also, just to speak to whether, are we going to see absorption of the demographic majority if we don't have the necessary skills match. So that is also a huge thing when you look at, the matriculant results that came out, and what are the subjects that we're seeing a decline in. So if we talk about, this artificial intelligence and looking at jobs, innovative jobs for the future, is the South African market, are we going to be in the same situation in 10 years' time? Or are we going to have graduates that are, they've got BA degrees, they've got law degrees, they've got LLBs, but they're working as cashiers in supermarkets, for example. So I think there's a lot of things that hinges on the, unemployment. And I think that the president has said that SMMEs don't really create jobs and they don't increase the GDP. And one then needs to ask, well, how does one support the SMMEs to ensure their success so that they do create more jobs and they do contribute towards the GDP rate?
We heard the president this week speaking about the 500 million rand SMME debt relief program, announcing that, and also speaking towards how this space can operate and be effective in sprucing up the country's economy, speaking about how it should be, entrepreneurs should be penetrating the local market, be the first to trade with countries like Egypt and Senegal. With this debt relief in place, are you confident that it inspires some sort of hope and it aids in ensuring that we do get some sort of economic restoration?
Yeah, the issue is that when you look at the State of the Nation address and you look at the budget and you look at the numbers that are being, that are being thrown around, they change year on year. If you put the budget speech of the last 3 years next to each other, you'll see that the numbers change. So there's no consistency. I'm not really interested in the numbers. For me, it's about capacity to deliver, and I think a huge part of that is an input that we made yesterday as the BMF was into the National School of Government was the professionalizing the public service framework and basically depoliticizing appointments into government so that you don't have these instances of corruption. You don't have these instances where people find themselves wanting to be in close proximity to politicians. So the numbers are always going to be something that people are going to kind of throw around. And to me, it's not necessarily we focus on the numbers, we focus on whether there is capacity to deliver, because we find municipalities in the first instance, 7 to 8% have only, been given a clean audit. So a lot of times the municipalities have budgets that roll over because they're not spending the money. So this speaks to management of funds and not necessarily a lack thereof. So I think it's a top-down approach, and that needs to be managed so that we can see economic growth and we can see infrastructure plans being implemented. Because without that, we don't have an environment of investment. We don't have an environment even where local businesses want to invest. And I think the issue of, where we find ourselves in today, specifically around the coronavirus having impacted the economy, is because necessary interventions were not made when the lockdown began in March. So we have all these grants, but when you look at who's getting the grants and the guaranteed scheme that the banks are allocating, it's not in line with, it's still in line with normal credit policies. So the banks are not easing that. They're not making access to credit easier for black women in particular. So even though the money's there, it's not being rolled out.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. That input coming from Deputy President of the Black Management Forum, Tasneem Fredericks, weighing in on the unemployment stats and the impact on women, and really pointing out black women and coloured women as the most vulnerable in that space. Now,